We are back from Detroit. This is Baschamania episode, like, I don't know, 156, 157, something like that. Willie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Finally, kind of decompressed. Got a day or two in me to refresh. It's an event out there. It's a
Well,
marathon.
you didn't even refresh because you had seeds to do.
Yeah, 55 brackets for NHSCA's plus the middle school ones. However many weights they are, probably 15.
Are they done now?
Something like 70 weights I seeded. Yeah, got done with them last night. Got a good night's sleep. I'm feeling good.
How do you feel after making the comment saying you should only let us seed? Now somebody let you seed, but you didn't sleep for 5 days. Are you going to tweet the same thing?
Well, NHSCA's is a different beast, but yeah, I love seeding. And you know what? I don't know if you meant to go into this, but I talked to a ton of coaches out there, a ton of administrators, coaches that are on the seeding kind of council thing that have a say in it, and there's a really difficult thing. We can look at brackets and we could know like Austin DeSanto being the 5 is just stupid, and Brady Berge beating Caleb Young twice in one weekend and then being 7 spots behind him in the seeds. We can look at that and we can say, yeah, that is stupid.
Yeah.
But to try to have a formula, how do you get that into a formula? And so the problem is really that they don't have enough human element. Everybody, we're a society now that everybody wants things scientific.
Yeah.
And they don't want a human element because the human element means you're biased or whatever. There could be bias in there. The bottom line is you need to make intelligent decisions, and the formula is good for what it is. They need to say Austin DeSanto is a 3. They need to say Brady Berge should be ahead of Caleb Young. They'll never do it, but
how do you think the seeds played out at NCAA's? I mean, we're going to go weight by weight, but overall, like high level overview.
They went, the seeds went pretty well, except for 5 seeds. There were more 10 seeds that AA'd. 6 10 seeds AA'd. 5 seeds did.
Wow.
Kind of weird. Yeah.
So before we talk NCAA's, I guess let's recap. There's not too much to talk about, but the Rudis event, I was there. I thought it went really smooth. I think everybody loved the event. They just said it went way too long.
Yeah, that's what the common complaints were. Was that awesome? They did awesome by the athletes. And the production of everything is just they had too long a break in between matches.
Yeah, and when you have that many matches too, I think you only need like 10 matches. Like keep it to a dual meet type length and maybe do a pre-card, but overall I thought it went smooth. Did the results surprise you at all?
No.
Snyder being Jaden, I thought that was going to happen. I'm interested to see. Jaden said, he's going to see me again. I don't know if that means this year or 2024, but
yeah,
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see our best teams out there. I want our best lineup possible until the Olympics, right? So I hope they stay different weights until the Olympics.
Same. I said that. I think Jaden Snyder is the best 1-2 punch possible at 92-97 right now, and nobody can refute that.
Right. I mean, there's other contenders and everything, but at other weights, but you just put that lineup out on paper where it's Dake Burrows, Taylor, Jaden Snyder.
It's nuts. Like that's yeah. All right. So Detroit, before we talk about the actual weights, what did you think of the city? You and I, we kind of talked about it when we were out there because number one, we don't necessarily see it from a fan standpoint. I think when you're on the floor or when you're working the event, you always come from a different perspective. We're also in the arena early, staying late. So you're not kind of with the crowds going to restaurants and bars. But what did you think overall?
I thought the arena was good. I thought the area around the arena was fine. Detroit sometimes that gets a reputation for being a rough city, but the area that we were in was fine. Didn't feel, like there's any crime around or anything. The arena itself, I don't know. It was a good size. I don't know if it was because the way they wanted to set it up or if it was a tad too small, but they usually have 2 rows of press seating. Yep. This is something that fans, I don't know if anybody listening really cares about, but I care about it because it makes a difference for us.
Well, we got lucky with the local media not showing up.
Yeah, right. So there's usually 2 rows of seating for press, but they gave a lot of spots to the SID. It was almost all SIDs.
Yep. It was NCAA, SID, and then like Flow, Intermat, USA Wrestling. That was pretty much it, except for like,
a
couple people.
Yeah. Operations and stuff.
And I went up to like the perch where they have the most of media. It's almost a disjustice to try to truly cover the event there.
Absolutely.
Because if you're up there, which is the 5th floor, which is worse than any seat in the arena, and the big thing is you can't interview or talk to a single athlete or coach, nothing, if you're up there. You're almost better standing in the hall waiting to talk to people versus unless you're covering it strictly from who won, who lost, it's so hard to be up there.
Yeah, and if you're covering it from that standpoint, you could cover it from home.
Correct. You're better off covering it from home.
Imagine trying to go down and get an interview, go up to the 5th floor, and then while you're en route, you miss the wrestling. What's going on, right?
Yeah.
So it's better maybe to even just work in the media workroom, which was crowded. It was a giant room, and it was so packed. And that's not a fault of theirs because that's one of the biggest media workrooms I've seen. One of the people that run Little Caesars Arena, one of the administrators, he told me he was surprised by how many people were there and photographers were there, and that they had one leg of the NCAA basketball tournament a couple of years ago, and he said there's more media here than at one of the.
And I will say that every single person in wrestling media, I think, was there.
Yeah.
There was definitely the coverage was great. I think the ESPN numbers coming out are, best viewership ever. Not by much, like 525,000 for Friday night versus like 500,000 last year, but still better than ever. I think there was a ton of coverage, but it was good.
They have, we have a partnership with a Big Ten network too, and I'm not sure if they released their numbers, but when I was there at Big Ten's, they came up to me and said, "Hey, Willie, how's it going? This and that." I said, "How's things going for you?" And they told me that, I said, "Hey, your numbers are probably good." I said, "The vibe I get is people are watching this. People are, going bonkers." And they said that their day one numbers this year on the Big Ten network for the Big Ten tournament drastically beat last year's number for the whole tournament.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, and Shane's doing an awesome job too with keeping that energy going. They're committing that show once a week. They're doing an awesome job of kind of committing back to the sport.
Amazing job. Yeah.
I was great to see that. All right, going into the weights.
Yeah.
What a tournament. I don't know, before we go through the weights, if you want to put on the Wolverine Willie hat or if the Penn State Willie's here to stay. I know you're in the Oklahoma box, so...
yeah, well, I'll tell you what I'm proud of. And, they're not in the team. They're not in the shot for the national title, but I'm proud of the Huskers. They came in 5th. They were close for the podium, didn't quite work out. They lost 2 guys in the blood round with Chad Red and Taylor Benz. Interesting thing about Chad Red A8 every year except lost in the blood round his senior year. Taylor Benz A8 his freshman year and lost in the blood round ever since. So kind of 2 weird things there, but
Brian Snyder, your boy, was heated.
Yeah.
And I found out after that basically he went to challenge a call. They said, sorry, you have no challenges left. And in turn, they had one challenge left.
Yeah. I mean, so Labriola's wrestling Kemmerer, they kind of awarded a Kemmerer takedown, arguably prematurely. Nebraska went and challenged. They said, you don't have any challenges. They said, yes, we absolutely do. They said, no, you don't. You can't challenge. Match over. Nebraska staff went to the administration, said, we have a challenge. We absolutely have a challenge. They said, let's look. Let's go through it. They said, yes, you do. Right. And I don't know what the likelihood of the call being overturned was, but that can't happen. That just can't happen. And, you could make the case that now Nebraska and Iowa at the time were like 6 points apart, 8 points apart. But you can make the case that if Labriola wins that match, not only do they, subtract points from Iowa, add points for Nebraska, but then Labriola has the ability to go further in the tournament than just stay at 7th. So it was a big deal. And I hope, it wasn't the end of the world, but to be at the last dance and have a clerical error get messed up. The only thing you can hope for is that they don't make a mistake like that again. I mean, imagine if that was a Penn State, Michigan error, can't happen.
Yeah. I'm curious too, I don't know what you can do now. It's kind of one of those things but when I say he was the most pissed off man in that arena, when that happened, that's not that's not exaggeration.
It's really uncalled for that could happen. But so Penn State wins it, and the numbers, of course, are crazy. Penn State 21-3 in their last, or they won 21 of the last 24 finals. Their semifinal winning percentage, they went perfect, or no, they went 5-6 in the semis. Only Kirkfleet losing, and their numbers are just bonkers, man.
To have 5 in the finals 6 years in a row, except 1 year they had 4. That consistency is nuts. I know people make the Cal and Gable comparisons and the the length and this and that. What Cal is doing is bananas.
They're
and obviously
almost winning,
fan, but
they're coming close. They're competing in dual meets with the number ones in the rest of the country. Say it out. I mean, spell it out.
Yeah.
Right.
It's wild. And to have, I guess this is a good segue into going through the weights. When you have guys like Drew Hildebrandt, who, everybody talks about transfers and transfers this. Drew Hildebrandt scored a combined 0.5 point.
Yeah.
For the Penn State postseason. So, even having poor performances like that, Penn State still is able to get it done. I know I had high expectations for Drew.
Well, I mean, he was 5th last year, right? And to go 1-2 and score 0.5 point isn't what people expected. Now, remember, and I'm not taking anything. I think a lot of people, I don't want to belittle anyone's accomplishments. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But I didn't hear anybody talk about on the ground there and I didn't see anybody tweet, and I didn't see anybody write an editorial viewpoint of this. But nobody brings up last year that the Ivies weren't there. And that drastically changed the field. And at no weight did it drastically change the field more than 25. So I'm not saying that Drew Hildebrandt only AA'd because the Ivies weren't there, but it's a different field. It's a different field, and it's different expectations.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're spot on. Obviously, I thought the way Vito was looking all season, I thought he was going to win this whole thing. I thought he had it in him. Soriano shows up in a way where I can't remember. I was telling Zeb, somebody, that I do not think he's going to go on the senior level. I think he feeds off of crowds. And you saw that big this weekend with his reactions to matches every round. I think he goes right in MMA. I think he needs that audience to feed off of. I don't think we see him on the senior level, but I mean, he showed up this weekend and just, major decision, just got it done.
Yeah. He looked great, man. He looked great. And in all positions, right? Glory until the third period, Glory couldn't ride him.
Yep.
I mean, I was sitting with people. I said, "What? Why?" Because I watched the finals from a suite, which, good Lord, there's nothing better than a suite at NCAA.
That's the move next year. Have the media credential, go down, do the interviews, talk to people, do whatever, and then go watch in the suite. The suite's the best.
That is heaven. Having a media credential and having a suite
is the best.
Most glorious thing in the world. But I was sitting with people and I said, I don't know why Soriano was taken down. It's the only place he's even remotely vulnerable here in this match. And he wasn't vulnerable. He got out right away. Now he got ridden in the third. What'd you make of those stalling calls in the third?
Stalling's so subjective nowadays. It's so subjective. And I don't care as much when I don't have a dog in the fight one way or another. That Soriano is definitely looking tired towards the end. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to say nowadays what should be called stalling and what shouldn't be because they don't define it and there's no consistency. Yeah. So it's like at times you have a guy protecting their lead and they do the same thing coaches do when they play the system. Wrestlers are going to do the same thing. They do not care about every second just entertaining fans. They want to go out and win a championship. And if they have to stall at one point or another, they're going to do that. Exactly. Now, what's the definition of the calls and when they should get them? It's so tough to say now more than ever, I think.
Especially on bottom. You don't see guys get hit a lot on bottom. And Soriano was getting hit a lot now. And the crowd was, at that point in the match, the crowd was really with Glory. And I thought that Glory should have tried and ride out and get one more. He cut him loose with like 35 seconds to go. I thought he should have stayed on top and pray for the Hail Mary to get one more stall call and put it into overtime. But because I really didn't think he had a shot to take him down on his feet. Nothing I saw at that point would indicate that. But it was really interesting final. It was a really crazy semi with him and Vito. I went back and forth. That was a really hard one to pick. I think I picked Vito to win that semi, but actually before the tournament, I picked Glory to win that semi. Then during the tournament, I was like, nah, Vito's going to win it. And
Vito won the last two matchups between them, right? Or like two of the three or something like that before.
Yeah, Glory won in the duel. And then Araju beat him in the EIWA finals. And the one in the EIWA finals was terrible. But my point in picking Glory in the semis was that, and it was contradictory to the EIWA finals. That's why I picked him in the EIWA finals too, is that they're going to weigh in at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're going to wrestle at 6 o'clock at night. Yeah. Glory's big, So you make a good point. I didn't think about Nicky going right into MMA, but I think that's where he should go. I think,
especially because you don't have to have senior level success before, but he really hasn't had that much success where it's like, if anything, I feel like it's a deterrent. We have such good lightweights right now between Gilman and Fix and everybody else that it's not a guarantee he makes a world team, but he could probably get a pretty lucrative contract right now in MMA.
Frankly, he's been a little snake bit in the freestyle department go all the way back to losing a 1-1 ball grab or shot clock thing versus Fix in the cadet finals. And then, having some bad breaks go his way. And then COVID, he got COVID at the Olympic trials after, putting all his eggs in that basket. And, 2024 is close, but it's still far away. If I was Nicky, I'd go MMA right now.
Well, and I think too, aside from, because he's got an incredible talent, but the biggest thing I think is that he's feeding off the crowd. You saw that in Detroit. His reactions, you could tell he's ready for a post-fight in the arena. Right. Mm-hmm. And on the senior level, I know this year it's not in the Bill Farrell, but we got the Bill Farrell next weekend. How many people are going to be there? We've got 10 men's freestyle wrestlers registered for it. 10.
It's next weekend already?
It's next Friday, Saturday.
God, I hate
everybody I've talked to said they're not going. It's the open.
What is the point of having the Farrell right now?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't either. So yeah, I think Soriano's going to go right to MMA. We'll obviously see. I mean, this is some momentum, but also at 25, McGee winning like 197 straight Consi matches before Vito beat him is nuts. That kid is made for the wrestlebacks.
Yeah. It's every time, right? I mean, every time you want to stick a fork in him. He loses the first round to Shawver at Big Tens, comes back, take third. He loses the first round to Shawver again this year, comes back and take third. He loses early last year at NCAAs, takes third. Loses first round to Caleb Smith, a SoCon kid, and he comes all the way back and takes fifth in a weight that, his only other loss was to Raja. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's wild.
I kind of want to ask you what your outlook is for next year, but maybe we do a different show in like 2023 preview show next time.
There's a lot to digest about next year.
Yeah.
I think that has to be a standalone show because there's a lot. There's a lot
for sure. There is even like I was looking at things last night, like just the eligibility wise. I was like, Mickey Phillippe's back. Like, right? There's guys that are back that you're surprised about.
And I think there's a lot of guys, too, that we don't know yet, which I guess is a good segue to 33. Throughout the tournament, more and more, Roman's being less definitive about not wrestling to the point where at the end of the tournament, he tweeted out, "What do you think? Should I come back for one more?" And obviously, everybody wants him to. But, I don't see him wrestling freestyle. I think it's same with Soriano. I think he's, MMA or nothing. I don't see the freestyle thing being a huge draw to him.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the freestyle thing with Roman, but let me first address the if he's coming back or not. Roman, listen to me. I will pay you. Sign a deal with Mascots right now. I will pay you to come back. And that's not Penn State Willie. All you fans out there, that's not Penn State Willie. It's I don't want special talents to be driven away by a money issue, right? That's sad to me. If people walk away from wrestling because of the money issue,
and to be clear for the people listening, what Willie's referring to is that there's a lot of schools, and Penn State's one of them, that NIL deals are being rumored to not being going through.
100%.
I won't confirm or deny what I know behind the scenes, but that is out there. And if you're having deals presented to you, and if you can't accept them, that's frustrating because you're literally at that point giving up money to be in college another year. And wrestlers don't make a lot of money. So if you're turning down money,
it's one thing, right? There's levels to it. It's one thing to, man, I'm wrestling, but I'm not making any money. And then it's the next step is, okay, here's offers, but I can't take them.
Right.
My particular school said I can't take them. Now,
and with this year, with Sandy Barber retiring, it might get interesting.
Listen, I don't want to say too much, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think that Kale might like that Sandy is retiring.
I think anybody who's a wrestling fan is likely going to, if you've read the writing on the wall for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, she wasn't the biggest help to the Penn State program.
Yeah. And I also believe that so a new AD is going to come in here and say, what's the landscape of Pennsylvania? Wrestling. What's the landscape of my athletic department? Wrestling's won, I don't know, 9 of 10. What is it now? 9 of 10?
9 of 11.
9 of 11. And so the new idea would be wise to embrace that and to what the new ID doesn't want to do is mess with that success, right?
Yep.
That, it turns into Penn State doesn't win championships, then they point the fingers to the new AD. So I think the new ID would be wise to work with Kale and allow some of these NIL deals. And the funny thing about the NIL deals that are rumored to be nixed at Penn State is that they go on like every other university. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's not like some weird situation that they want certain NIL deals that nobody goes for. They want just run-of-the-mill NIL deals that they won't go for, is what I'm told.
Yep.
So I think between a new AD, NIL deals coming in, and Kale has a plan, right? Kale's working through some stuff, and so I think it's going to be even, if you can imagine, even a better environment going forward,
which is huge. So yeah, 33. This was one weight your crystal ball was wrong, and I called this out months ago, and I said that Roman's underrated, and we talked about this, and we both agreed that to beat Dayton Fix twice, really, it changes. That's levels.
Yeah.
To beat somebody once is one time. To beat him twice, Roman, and that's one of the reasons why I know you're advocating for him to come back. The talent there is stupid. To think that Dayton Fix is, and I love Dayton Fix, like I could see his emotion after, like on the podium, how upset he was, and that hurts. Like, I like Dayton; he's a great kid. To be in the finals and lose 3 times and be that good is so crazy to me.
Well, listen, I watched the finals with Dayton Fix's father in Dayton Fix's suite. All right, I'm really close with Dayton. He's about as.
That's one reason I didn't want to go up there with you. When you said I'm going up to the Oklahoma State suite, I said I'm going to be screaming for Roman. I
mean, I don't know, man. I get accused of being a homer here, a homer there, a homer there, and I think, and even teased by you, Penn State Willie, Wolverine Willie, this and that. I call it like I see it, and I think I'm the only freaking rational, level-headed, straight shooter in wrestling. I watched this Fix match from Dayton Fix's suite, and I also text Roman as soon as it was done. Great job, buddy. Let's talk. And he texts me back, thanks. Thanks for always being there. And what was the words? It's something like that. It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. It's never easy. Is exactly what he said. So I don't know. It's tough to watch Dayton take second 3 times in a row, and who knows if RBY comes back. But me picking Dayton in the crystal ball was less about I'm close with Dayton and I prefer Dayton over RBY, and more. Let's take a look at 57. I will take Carr next year, right? I'll take Carr right now. I will take David Carr to win next year. Yep. It's the same reason I didn't pick Griffith to win this year. I understand that RBY beat him last year, but I want to see him do it again before I say, okay, now this is a trend.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you look at Roman's path, like I would have voted for Roman to have OW of the tournament. I love Gable, and I think at this point he earns everything he gets, but I feel like he's also getting stuff because he's Gable. Whereas like I look at Roman's competition, it's like he beat DeSanto for the 6th time, should have been the 3 seed. He beat him, and then he goes and beats Fix again. It's tough.
You know what the odd thing that's happening with Fix, happening with RBY. And the reason he's underrated from the sense that, not that people don't understand how good he is, but they take it for granted now that he beats DeSanto. Do you know how hard it is to beat DeSanto? Do you know how hard it is to beat DeSanto? DeSanto won the first couple matchups, and RBY goes 6 straight matches. DeSanto has not taken down RBY in 6 matches.
And Roman told me that after Big Tens. He said, Austin is such a competitor he was so proud of beating DeSanto 5 times in a row because of what a game plan that takes. And you kind of saw it with Shane beating Wick, right? Like Shane said, listen, it's hard to be a national champ 4 times in a row. And a lot of times when somebody beats somebody so many times in a row, you start to eventually think this is where the underdog's going to get one. And Roman 6 times in a row game planned very successfully to win matches.
That's why people take RBY for granted. That's why he's underrated to a certain extent, because if RBY drops one of those 6 somewhere along the line, he's probably more revered. But because he beats him every time, everybody's like, well, he's beating the guy he's supposed to beat. He's not necessarily supposed to beat him, as odd as that sounds.
And that's why
it's almost a toss-up match that RBY just happens to win every time.
And it's funny you say that, because I was just going to say, especially from a media standpoint, it's almost easier to talk about a rubber match where each guy won one, like Brooks and Mean, than it is, like if Fix won this weekend and now they wrestle next year, that is a huge rubber match, right? All right, who's going to take the final one? But because Roman, he beat DeSanto 6 times in a row, and now he beat Fix twice in a row.
Right. So how about this, though? You say Gable gets it because it's Gable. What if Dayton won last year? What if RBY beat DeSanto the last 6 times, but last year's finals, what if Fix won that? Then if RBY won this year, everybody's mind would melt.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost a curse to the expectation.
Well, and that's why that's why I say Gable no doubt earns it. But if you look at his path, he didn't have an NCAA champion. Not that Roman did, because Fix hasn't won one either. But
I don't know. Was there ever a weight? I don't know. Was there ever a weight ever in the history of the NCAA tournament that had more world medals than Gable's weight this year? Everybody had a world medal.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of world level success at that weight.
Yeah.
And it was also, his matches got closer. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but he only scored 10 points in 8th and 6th. And I think a lot of that is Gable showing respect to his opponents. You saw it with Colton, you saw it with Kirk when he's trying to ride Kirk out.
Yeah.
Roman, I freaking love that kid. By the way, I am equally stunned and equally of course, that all 10 champions do not have shirts for sale right now. Shout out Spartan, because they got to have some nuts shirt out for Yanni, which I just bought one. You can get one at Spartan Combat. I'm stunned that you don't even need a apparel deal. Have somebody design and print them. You know what I mean? I was thinking about this morning, I'm going to text Roman. I'm about to put out a shirt for him, because this is why in Ricio's posters, those should be for sale right away. Capitalize off this. Somebody was texting me where can I get a Penn State championship shirt? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think anywhere. That's what happens.
They should have them ready to go.
Right. And shout out Spartan that they went so quick on handling that. It's an awesome shirt. Did you see it? It has the squirrel on it. Great shirt. So anything else at 33?
I don't think so. DeSanto's gone. Myers is gone. We'll see. I wrap up every weight kind of by looking at next year. Maybe I should just shut up about it and we'll do a different show on it. But I think we'll see Glory go up to 33.
You could see Vito potentially go up.
You could.
I feel like any of these 25 guys could go to 33. You know what I mean? It's never. All right, 41. My boy Nick Lee. I'm so freaking happy for that kid.
Me too.
He's one of those workhorses that just gets it done. And this was that real Woods and Nick match for me. Chenzo's my guy. And I love Nick Lee. Watching Chenzo coach against Nick Lee, I'm just hiding in a corner. I'm happy, obviously, for whoever wins. But Real was right there. That was a 3-2 match. That
3-2.
was
Yep. He looked really good, man. He looked really good, at least through the front side. Composto beating Alirez was a curveball. Willits beating Hart, and then in the backside he beat Chad Red. Oregon State had a great tournament.
What is we talked about this, but I'll give you the platform to publicly speak about it. The Red Rivera stall call. Your thoughts?
Oh man, you just don't make that call, in my opinion. You don't make the call. Let them decide it. That's my opinion. Let them decide it. Now I know
You're also your best tweet, not to interrupt you, but your best tweet of the weekend was overtime rules should be neutral till death.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that tweet went wild, especially in the finals. I mean, and I know how could it only be the finals? Well, I don't know, but it's in the finals. Just let him go. That's why when I did Who's Number One, I implemented that rule, right? I actually employed that rule. And because I'm not going to have this kid fly in from California and this kid fly in from Oklahoma to determine the number one kid in the country and then have it on some BS OT ride out bullcrap.
Yep. What did you think of Clark this weekend? I mean, what a run he went on.
I thought Clark was good. I thought he looked, it's amazing how different somebody can look from week to week, because
dude, that crowd went nuts after when him and Nick started in the finals and they had that little scramble.
Yeah.
Like the crowd went nuts, just applauding both of them.
I mean, credit to Clark for going out there and letting it rip, you know. And but then, I said to people around me, I said, all right, here comes the pain. But it's amazing how you can look different. He went 0-2 at ACCs.
Yeah.
Went 0-2 at ACCs, came in as a 15 and made the finals. Now, of course, that bottom half of the bracket was busted up, and credit to him for busting it up, though. But he beat Ironman. Rivera lost to Matthews, and then he beat Matthews. And it was good to see, UNC, I'm close with those guys, and they had a national champ last year in O'Connor, graduated some guys shifting around in weights a little bit. And it wasn't, so after the fanfare of having a national champ last year and then O'Connor moving up and being injured and stuff, and I kind of felt bad for him. There wasn't a whole lot of momentum going on there. They didn't really have the year they wanted. And to get Keyshawn through to the finals, I was happy and proud for the staff at UNC.
Yeah, and Tony and Scott are good guys. I don't know if you saw it, but Tony and Scott reacting in the corner to Austin All-Americaning was one of my favorite coaching moments of the weekend. That you could just see how much it meant to them. Yeah,
they knew what he was going through, and it's just amazing some of those guys gutting it out. Everybody.
Dude, and I'll tell you what, I'm not a big Iowa guy. Obviously, I'm a Penn State fan, but so much respect should be given to Ironman, knowing how injured he was. And that picture that I think the NCAA captured of him hugging Micic just after he, like halfway through the match, he had to call it off.
Yeah,
I don't care who you root for, who you don't like that picture got you. Like, that's wrestling. Dude, it's so tough. And I give him so much respect. Like, if you were watching his matches closely, and I'm sure you could probably see on TV, but he was hurt.
Yeah,
that dude was hurt. And you saw it like the last month where he's kind of like hobbling around. Like, you knew that was an injury that was pretty serious.
Yeah. It's gutting to see some of those guys that are hurt at the wrong time, at the worst time, and Jaden was one of them. And Jaden's salt of the earth kid. He's such a great kid. And it was not a surprise to me at all to see him with good sportsmanship and being, giving mad respect to Micic. There's so many tear-jerking moments in that. I'm going to be honest with you. I cried during Hayden Hidley's interview. I cried a little bit.
The comment about I'd lose 100 matches for Trent to win one or whatever it was.
Well, just the whole thing. He's such a great kid.
Yeah,
He's
he
poured
is.
everything into it, and he does everything right. He's a great teammate. He's a great member of the family. He said the stuff he said about his brother, the stuff he said about being a teammate, the stuff he said about coming back just for the team and moving up a couple weight classes and just letting her rip this year, the stuff he said about hanging up his competitive shoes and going into coaching, just man, it tugs at you. And there's so many guys that were injured. Seabass, all class, right?
I love
His, his interviews afterwards. I mean, all class. Peyton Robb tore his MCL, and that picture with Teamer, right? Just amazing stuff.
It's interesting too. I think I was talking to Shane Sparks about it. All the rage was Lee Rivera Ironman, but we didn't see any of it.
No.
It's so crazy.
No,
how
not once.
You obviously, when we preview a tournament, you obviously preview the top seeds because it's the most likely to happen. But 99% of the times, there's one kink somewhere, and then you have something like this that, you're not going to do a prediction show and be like, well, listen, Clark's going to go on a run. And
right. That's what, it gets you every time I walk into a building or I get off the plane in Detroit, and everybody that sees you goes, okay, so what's your big upset? It's like, I don't have any big upsets. The seeds are right. Their body of work.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff will happen because crazy stuff happens. But how do you pick crazy upsets? You can't pick crazy upsets really, because you're so familiar with their body of work. Now, I'll say this.
I do like what Corby does, which is he says like a dark horse to watch or keep an eye on. Yeah. I think you can do that. I think you can say like, keep an eye on this guy, keep an eye on that guy. Like that makes the tournament fun. But like you said, it's so hard to pick an actual upset.
Right. Was there any guys in the tournament that before the tournament you said keep an eye on this guy? You don't know if they'll win. You don't know if they'll go on a run. But
the only two were, and this is more just being a Penn State fan, that if Drew or Berge would have taken third, fourth, fifth, I wouldn't have been crazy surprised. Drew was there, and Brady has that level of talent, but there wasn't many kids that I thought like. I mean, in retrospect, you can go back and say, "Oh, I thought he, like Ridge Lovett, he's a 10 seed, who took second." And I guess that's a good segue to 49. But it's like after he made the Big Ten finals last year, I don't think that's a crazy prediction to think Ridge could go on a run.
The one I had probably in the whole tournament was Composto. I was not shocked that he beat Alirez. I didn't pick it, but when the brackets came out, I circled it and I said Composto could be a surprise, go on a surprise run. I didn't pick it, but but that was one.
Also, before we go to 49, and I say it 1,000 times in the show how important health and timing is to win. And even as a team, if you look at the combined points scored by Spencer Lee and Jaden Ironman in the NCAAs compared to what we thought were going to be the outcome of those two, you're talking finals for both. Spencer's probably a lock to win, if not a lock to win, probably top two. And you would have predicted Ironman in the finals.
So let's get into that a little bit, because almost every year the Hawkeye Report goes into absolute meltdown about their performance, about this and that. Even last year when they won the title, they were really disappointed in the finals outcomes.
Rightfully so.
Where Kemmerer lost and etc. And the Bull defaulted out. Now this year was, on the Hawkeye Report has been especially doomsday scenario, but there is something to be said or something to be explored in. And on one hand, it seems like man, they got completely snake bit this year, right? They lost Spencer. This guy got injured. That guy got injured and all this stuff. On the other hand, it's like, I don't know. They get injured often. And I thought that Tom did a kind of a better job, not a better job, a different job this year of kind of tempoing them. I don't really have anything to point to the evidence of that other than just a feeling that I had in their. I thought they were wrestling really well towards the end, but at the end of the regular season. But man, they've suffered a lot of injuries. Even like Corey Clark had a bad injury. Morningstar, right? You can go back. Like they get a lot of injuries for some reason.
Yeah, and even though Cody Goodwin did not think it was a big deal, I did. That if DeSanto or Warren don't make the finals, 32-year like having a finalist streak is over.
Yeah, there were a couple weird things. Like Iowa almost didn't have a finalist, and the one finalist that they did have was a guy who Warner beat Schultz, who he was like 0-3 against.
By the way, you want to talk about crying during an interview? I had to walk away when they were interviewing Marinelli because that one was like Marinelli's interview. You got to watch it. I was standing right there when they were doing it.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart. He's such a good kid.
He's such a good kid.
He is the salt of the earth. Like,
I mean, he'll forever would be one of my all-time favorites. The haters, people that just don't like Iowa, or people that look through the lens of a scientific, historic thing, real nerdy wrestling fans will be like, oh, well, his highest place was this, and he won 4 Big Ten titles, but he never, made the semis. Listen, I don't care. I as a human being, as an ultimate competitor, they don't make him better than Alex Marinelli.
He's an awesome kid. All right, so 49, Yanni's World. This is Yanni's world.
Yep.
Everybody else at 49 is just kind of living in it.
Yeah.
I mean, Yanni's my guy. I didn't think he was going to have a problem with this tournament. You look at the results, and that's kind of what I predicted. He beat Murrin 6-3, he beat Sasso 6-3, and then he beat Lovett 11-5. He may be one of the best folk style wrestlers on planet Earth.
Yeah, for sure.
And he did not like his performance Friday night. And I was paying attention. A lot of the guys, I saw Gable at MGM Grand Saturday morning. And so, what are you doing today? And he's like, I'm just going to get some breakfast. I think it was with the family. And then I'm just going to chill in the hotel. And that's what you see a lot of people do. They just kind of chill out. Yanni was in the back with Gray like all day. And I think it's because of his performance Friday night and just wanting to do better. I mean, you could tell his displeasure for himself in that interview.
I noticed something about Yanni. I went to a Columbia duel. I went to a duel this year where it's Columbia, somebody in Cornell. It was a tri meet. Dang it, I forget who it was. Oh, it was Navy. And I'm basically on the Cornell bench. And Yanni's like dead serious, all business. And he wrestles. And I was like, okay, now he's going to be a little bit looser. And he comes off, and then he follows intently, and he's still all business, all of his teammates. And then the duel ends, and he's like, what's up, Willie? How's it going? And I'm like, all right. It's just that Yanni, when they're competing, he's just blinders on, all business, right? Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't surprise me that he was dialed in, focused all day. And that's why Yanni's a big critic of himself.
Yep.
Which probably makes him as good as he is.
Yeah, and I'm not a big like selfie picture guy. I love like people like Zeb who get a ton because I wish I had them later on to look back at. But when I was talking to Yanni afterwards, he was so happy. I'm like, we got to take a selfie right now. Because I'm like, you're never like this. And now, like, I tweeted it out like Mr. Smile, like Mr. 3-time. He was happy. And like when he has those moments, I don't bother him at all. As close as I am to him during a tournament, I don't really talk to him. because I know he's so dialed in, like you said, he's so locked in. It's just
he has a good mindset too. I interviewed him after, I don't know, quarters, I guess, or I forget what match it was, but I said something to the effect of, you know, you were in real dogfights your previous two titles. You know, you had crazy brackets where some people thought, you know, they could give you real tests, Ironman and this and that, and you're going to have really close matches. I said, this year you come into NCAAs for the first time, probably like a prohibitive favorite, like next topic almost.
Yeah.
I said, has there been any mindset in going from Hunter to Hunted? And he said, well, it's I don't have the title yet. I'm not the champ. I'm not the favorite. Everybody's trying to knock everybody off. And I just think he had a really good mindset that prevented anybody from upsetting him.
Yeah.
As much a lock as we think people can be, legends fall, right? David Carr fell this year. And even the most mind-blowing upsets, they happen. And Yanni's answer was sort of a testament to why it didn't happen to Yanni.
Yeah, well, I mean, last time Yanni and Ridge wrestled, Ridge took him into overtime.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of people were talking about before that match. And then, you know, after what we saw in the interview Friday night, you could tell he changed his perspective going into that finals match. I will also say at 49, Gomez and Andonian, as they say in the announcement world, was worth the price of admission. And to get it twice, wild.
I know. It was crazy. And I think that's what you would sort of expect out of those two.
Yeah, those two are just killers. What did you make of Sasso?
Well, I think that Sasso has not been putting up a lot of points. And I mean, my thing with Sammy is I think he's right there. I think he's right there with everybody in the field not named Yanni. You know, yep. I think he could take fifth. I think if he was in the bottom side of the bracket, I think he could have made the finals. You know, I think Sammy's fine.
Yeah, and Sammy and Gomez was a fun one. I mean, Gomez wrestled an awesome tournament, wrestling third. And I know that after Big Tens, Gomez wasn't going into Big Tens. I don't think people would have predicted Gomez taking third. And I think after Big Tens, you kind of expected a bit more. But thought Gomez wrestled a hell of a tournament.
Well, Gomez beat Tariq.
He beat Tariq and then he beat Sammy.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. That's incredible. Isn't it amazing how perceptions change? Like, you go back to the time of Gomez's announcement that he's coming back, and then you go to that he's wrestling 49, and like it's like everybody was like, okay, he's not, and whatever, you know, he's just having fun. He's not going to be very effective. Then going to Big Tens where he wins it, it's almost like a disappointment he took fourth, right? It's like people's opinions change so quick.
I know, it's nuts, but he wrestled an awesome tournament. And what I like and appreciate about Austin is he lets it fly every time he wrestles. He went out there, he's going to go for the big throws. He's going to put himself in dangerous positions if it means he has a shot at, you know, a big move. So yeah, that was definitely a fun way. I thought it lived up to all the hype.
Yeah.
57, Carr losing. I don't know if there's a single match for you that broke your heart. Carr's upset for me was that one that, like, I love Carr. He's one of my guys. I think he's, you know, we talk about Marinelli being one of the nicest guys in the sport. Carr, too, is one of the nicest humans on the planet. And that match broke my heart. I loved seeing him fight all the way back for third. I think that says a lot when you're a heavy favorite and you talk about legends falling. And then knowing that, because everybody's saying that to you. And everybody's kind of talking to you I texted him and I told him, like, I don't want to be cliche.
And the beat
like,
goes on.
You are somebody who's bold in your faith. And I think a lot of people look to you, and I think God can use this loss. Just keep doing you.
Yeah.
And watching how he wrestled back through third. And I think later this week, him and Brooks are coming on the podcast. I think that's the
awesome.
plan.
That's awesome.
But Carr's loss for me was like the match of the tournament that, like, if I could have a magical power to reverse any match in the tournament, it's that one.
Yeah. I don't know. You probably know better than me. And I am not making excuses for anybody. And I am not belittling. I'm not trying to reduce the gravity and the achievement of Hunter Willits, but I just don't think David was 100%. I don't know if it was physical. I don't know if it was mental. Remember when Greg Jones won a title as a freshman. As a sophomore, he went 0-2 or 1-2 as a number 1 seed. And if you remove those 2 days from his career, that is a complete outlier. It was a total out of body of experience. Now, was it because he was a sophomore coming back to defend his title? Was it just a bad weekend? Was he dinged up? I don't know. And I'm not trying to diminish Hunter Willits, but that whole result is an outlier, right? I mean, David Carr's a returning champ.
I think Hunter taking 7th kind of speaks to that.
Yeah. I mean, Hunter Willits is good. But Hunter Willits also just barely edged Brady Berge on a riding time point. And then David did not look David-esque in any other matches anyway. Yes, he came back and took third. But he wasn't the David we're used to.
No, I mean, definitely not. I mean, if you look at the results, he beat Rob 7-2. He beat Luan 6-3. He beat Frenek 4-3. He beat Caleb Young 5-3.
Yeah.
He beat Sheets 3-2. This is a guy who was in the hunt for a Hodge. Like,
right.
He's out there dominating. And to go through
again, no disrespect to Wyatt Sheets, but David Carr, Wyatt Sheets shouldn't be 3-2.
No. Well, Sheets is a 31 seed. So put the names aside. You have a 1 seed versus a 31 seed. A 3-2 match,
Yeah.
But yeah, David Carr, I love that kid.
There were some heartbreakers too here in the blood round. Like, I was happy you're happy to see David Carr come back. You're happy to see O'Connor come back. But man, heartbreak again for Josh Humphreys, who had such an excellent season. Jarrett Franek had such an excellent season, and they both lose in the blood round. That's heartbreaking.
You know who, now that I'm seeing his name, he is somebody that Doug Zapp is somebody that I thought could do something. I think that kid has so much talent.
Yeah,
and Peyton good. Robb just like beats my guys. Like, he took Carr to overtime, and then he beats Zapp 3-2, and then he beats Berge 8-3. Doug's a guy who I would have considered.
I'll tell you what, man. Peyton Robb has like sort of driven me nuts all year. He comes out, he drops back down to 57. He beats Austin O'Connor earlier in the year. He takes David Carr to overtime. Then he loses some matches that I thought, man, what do you? I mean, he didn't wrestle a good match against Brayton Lee. He took a couple losses that I didn't think he should take. He almost got by Kendall Coleman at Big Tens. And then when it's all on the line, he freaking tears his MCL. He has a big old brace on. And all he does is go scorched earth on the backside, just gutting everything out. Berge, Ed Scott, Willits, and then the teamer one. I mean, was there anything better than that picture this weekend? Just two dudes laying it all on the line.
The one where they're like shaking hands, laying down. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely a top 3. That one was a top 3. I think Ironman hugging Micic, about to cry. Like that was a tough one. Yeah. So Deacon's done now, right?
Yeah. Deacon's done. Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a fun weight next year. That's going to be a fun show to talk about these fun weights next year.
Yeah. Monday, awesome performance by him. You know, he started the year off with a big win over Caleb Young. Lost to Ed Scott once or twice. Scott DMP lost in the blood round to Rob.
You also got to shout out Reese Humphrey. Princeton had more finalists than Iowa did.
Princeton had 2 finalists.
Two finalists. That's amazing.
I forgot to say when you were talking about Warner being the only finalist for Iowa, the state of Pennsylvania only had 1 finalist, which was Carter Starocki, and so we almost didn't have a champ. PA almost didn't have a champ, and that happens like once every blue moon that Pennsylvania doesn't have a state champ. I think it happened in.
Didn't Iowa underperform as a state too?
The state of Iowa, had a terrible tournament. The state of Iowa had 1 AA, Marcus Coleman.
That's wild.
1 AA.
1 AA for the state of Iowa, 1 finalist for the state of Pennsylvania.
Those are insane numbers. I mean, think about it. Bergen Catholic had more finalists than PA. Bergen Catholic had more finalists than the state of Iowa had All-Americans.
That's
crazy,
nuts.
Right? So, but they're talking about that on the message boards too, about Iowa high school wrestling being down, but they're cycling up, right? They got some studs coming in.
Yeah, for sure.
So they'll be all right, I think. Pennsylvania, from an AA standpoint, they went something like, they only ended up with like 12 AAs, or something like that, but they had a horrible blood round. And they didn't have a whole lot of head-to-heads. So
yeah, 65.
They still led the country in AAs, but they weren't as dominant as usual.
65. I picked O'Toole to win the tournament because I thought he was that good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Wick was going to beat Shane because he won the last couple of ones.
Yeah.
And then I rooted hard for Shane to win, and I picked him in the finals because he looked amazing, and Chenzo's my guy. That's kind of a biased pick.
Yeah.
Shane may be the coolest guy in the NCAA.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even watching him warm up in the back, he's so calm and cool. He almost has that, even like the Penn State kids have a lot of fun, but this is even different than that. It's not that he's necessarily having fun. He's probably having fun, but he's just cool and calm and collected. He's not taking it too serious, and he's going out there. I mean, that
he's
win
always like that. You see him in the wrestling room, and it's almost like he's taking it like nonchalantly.
Yeah.
And then he has a lights on switch, man. I picked Wick. I thought it was going to be Wick over O'Toole or Wick over Marinelli. And Shane got it done because he's a gamer. And I'll tell you what, right in front of our mat, the mat in front of us, O'Toole at the end of the Valencia match, he was gimpy, like he couldn't freaking walk.
Yes.
And the coaches were like, the coaches put their heads down. I was really scared for Keegan on day 2.
He looked upset too. He looked like, Coach, I got to get out of here. Like he looked upset. We both looked at each other and we were like, uh-oh.
Keegan's room was like 2 rooms down from me in the hotel. And when we're going to the arena on day 2, we were on the elevator down together. And I didn't ask, I didn't say anything, but I saw it. We all, me and Basch were sitting right next to each other. It was right in front of us. Something definitely happened. I think he mentioned it afterwards, ankle or something. I don't know, but he gutted it out. He is a talent, that's for sure.
And I don't know how. It's funny. like, obviously you talk about that. So that's a good counterpoint to my next point too, is there's so many things that happen through this tournament that I feel like I would pick different winners depending on context. Like, context matters so much because when I saw Karchula, I think it was Friday morning, and his eye was swollen shut.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that doesn't bode well for the rest of the weekend for him. He's got one freaking eye.
Yeah.
You know, and when you see what these guys are going through the tournament, like, it makes you kind of adjust. And with Keegan, that was one of the reasons I lean towards Shane. Obviously, I had the Chenzo Stanford bias there, but I'm like, Shane looks 100% healthy. Keegan looked like he was almost in tears through. He was in pain. I'm like, I think Hamidi was the only true freshman All-American.
One. But you know what? It's crazy. We've been living through this last 5 years where youngsters make it look easy. And we're getting so accustomed to these freshmen coming in and doing damage, and they're being a finalist and a champ, right? One true freshman AA this year, Dean Hamidi.
Yep. And what did he take? I think he took
fourth. Sixth. He defaulted to Marinelli for fifth.
Okay. Yeah, fifth. So he took sixth. So the highest a true freshman took was sixth. And after the last couple of years, you know, we keep saying like these freshmen are getting better and better. How long are we going to keep seeing this for? Well, that streak ended.
Yep.
The true freshman champ. We had a lot. I forgot how many it was. Was it like 7 returning champions, I think, this year? Only 3 champions won who previously hadn't won before. That's wild.
So Suriano had already won before. RBY had already won. Nick Lee had already won. Yanni had already won. So 57 would be Deacon.
O'Toole.
65 O'Toole. 97.
Those 3 weights. That's it.
Those 3. That's it.
7 out of the 10 already had a championship.
Wow. And that just goes back to the point, right, where the younger guys have been getting it done.
And if you look at because the top 3 qualify for World Team Trials. Not a single weight qualified all 3 guys because guys already being qualified.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It shows you how good these kids are that
even
going into the NCAA, they're already qualified.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of this weight overall? I mean, obviously O'Toole's so good. Marinelli, you know, we kind of talked about it. That I was definitely rooting for Marinelli, if nothing else, because of the team race. I didn't want Michigan to win that match. But that Amin takedown was just like, that was the overtime takedown.
It was just man shit.
He just ran in like gladiator style.
Oh my God. It was so gutsy. I mean, that's what Cam is. I mean, he doesn't light it up. He's just tough. I mean, that room must be like, I imagine it is like an old Iowa take you to deep waters thing, because they gut out so many wins. Cam does it routinely. Luan, I tell you what, look at Luan. You know, he lost to Monday, but he gutted one out against JQs. He gutted one out against Young. He gutted one out against Willits.
Yeah.
And the backside, I guess he gutted one out against Teamer for 5th. Will Luan and Cam, I mean, they're all guts.
It kind of reminded me of like the James English run, where he's helping their team. There's that momentum, and it's like, those are guys who, and I've always said that I think any Izzy style guy is always dangerous and a guy you don't want to wrestle, because I think they have a lot of heart, and I think they're good kids.
Doesn't that epitomize the Luan JQ's match to me in round 1? JQ's has him beat. I mean, he's done. JQ's has to ride for 2 seconds. He has to ride for 2 seconds. The match is over. Jake Hughes won. Luan gets out and makes a run all the way to the semis.
Wild.
And becomes an All-American. That's the fine lines we're dealing with at the NCAA tournament. The parity in this country is so great right now. You have your elites, you have your Yannis and Gables and Nick Lees and stuff, but from 4 to 33 now, it's a dogfight.
Even look at the Wick Shane match. It looked like Wick kind of looked at the clock real quick.
Yeah.
And Shane got that takedown.
Yep.
Just like that. So yeah, that was a fun weight. Shane's awesome. I love that kid. But what a tough weight. If you look at like how the results played out, O'Toole 1, Shane Griffith 2, Marinelli 3, Hamidi 4, Karchula 5. Like, or no.
Yeah, what you call it was in there.
Wick 3rd, Amin 4th.
Amin, yeah.
Marinelli 5th, Hamidi 6th. But
it was my favorite weight. It was my favorite weight from the start of the year. You had Shane coming back.
What is Karchula? Sophomore?
Freshman.
He's going to be fun over the next couple of years to watch.
Absolutely. That weight's great and still young. You know, you lose Wick and you lose Wenzel, but everybody else is back.
O'Toole's only a sophomore. He's that's going to be a fun weight. 74.
And then you add, and listen, as much as I hate the Bull leaving, and I even tweeted, let the Bull wrestle forever. But as much as I hate that he's gone, Patrick Kennedy comes in, and I expect, he's taken some losses this year. He took some losses at the scuffle, but I'm really interested to see how Patrick Kennedy, I think by the time he's a full season in, up to speed next year, he's right in the mix.
Yeah, no, for sure. 74 might have been the way to the tournament. I know you said 65 was your favorite.
It was.
But the 74 semis
were
just, Makai's emotion after winning that match was incredible. And for me, Hidley is so good. The fact that Carter went out there, and Carter had like his separation, like he beat Kemp 10-4, then he beat Labs 6-1, then he beats Hidley 10-3. Like he went out there and he was like really controlling those matches.
That's another thing. There was a lot of critics, and there's still talk about it. Like, well, this Penn State team doesn't dominate as much, and this Penn State team uses tactics, and this Penn State team is shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. They dominate like 90% of the matches. There's only a few that's like nip and tuck. Okay, so they're not Jason Nolf and David Taylor who are teching in the finals, but they're incredible. And what you also have to appreciate, unless you're a freaking idiot and just a Penn State hater, what you also have to appreciate is the fact that they're able to tool up almost everybody, but when they get in a dogfight, they're tough enough to gut it out. So they've got the talent, the skills, and the grit. So shut up.
Yeah. What Willie said.
It just boggles my mind.
Well, I think also, I agree with you because I hear that, like the bonus stuff. And first of all, they had a lot of bonus early. They had
my God. Are you kidding me? They had more bonus in round one than almost every team in the country had total points.
And
so they're killing everybody. And then when they get to guys that are freaking amazing. Oh, Carter had to ride out for the win. Yeah, against a junior gold medalist and a returning champ from 2 years ago. You freaking moron.
You know what's interesting about that too is the same people who discredit Penn State that they don't get bonus like they used to. You also got to give credit to these coaches for one thing I've always said about Carter is this kid has ice in his veins.
He does.
And so while you had a lot of bonus wrestling Penn State kids, you've also, at least in my eyes, haven't seen Penn State kids have this much overtime matches. And Penn State's overtime win rates are pretty dang good.
Yeah. And they also, even the legends of this sport, the Tom Brands, the I don't know, the Kyle Dakes, they have stubbed their toe once in a while.
Yep.
Right. Kyle Dake lost to Kevin LaValle one year at EIWAs in the finals. Tom Brands, I think one year took 5th at NCAAs. Sometimes just things don't work out. They lose a match close here and there. Carter Starocki does not. Nick Lee does not. RBY does not. He's beaten all right. You could forgive RBY if he lost to Austin DeSanto one of these times. They are talented and they are gritty. And it's just you put those two together and it's just incredible.
And just before we started recording, Win Magazine released the Hodge finalist.
Right.
3 are Penn State kids.
Yeah.
3. Because Roman, Nick, and Carter all repeat, won again, and went undefeated doing it. I mean,
yeah, how hard is it? So last year, everybody's minds got bent in the finals when Penn State won. Would they win 5-4?
Last year, 4.
They won 4. Everybody's mind got bent. Guess what, guys? And all the message boards were like, well, they can't do that again. Well, they did.
They won up themselves. They didn't do 4. They did 5.
Not only did they didn't stub their toe anywhere along the line, right? In the last 20 years, 5 of the 8 NCAA point scorers are Penn State guys.
That's nuts.
And that's with Carter and Brooks still to come. They're still having a couple years. Nick Lee is 20th, but Stieber, Taylor, Nolf, Ruth, Dake, Bo, Ringer, Rutherford, Snyder, and Oliver are the top 10.
That's a squad right there.
Yeah.
By the way, if you had to give a Hodge vote, who would you vote for?
Gable.
Yeah, I think he's going to get it.
Gable. I mean, there's the level of dominance that he has. I mean, it's supposed to go to the most dominant, and people will say, well, pins. It's supposed to be pins.
Well, Gable's he has 83% bonus this year. That's just stupid. So if you're going by
at
dominance, right? And as much as I love, I love Roman, I would have given him the OW for the tournament. His bonus rate was only 55%. Nick Lee's was only 59%. Yanni's was only 61%. Carter 61%. O'Toole 64%. Deacon 50%. And then you have Nick at 75%. Gable at 83%. Gable has my vote.
Gable led all undefeated guys. Yeah. Give it to him.
Yep. And the only one who and it's interesting. I don't know what you make of it. And I don't know if this is, on one level, I get with Gable, he only wrestled 18 matches and you could say WWE, whatever, but even Deacon only wrestled 18 matches too.
Well,
Soriano only wrestled 16 matches.
Let's see. Right. And these are what they came in with. Soriano came in with 15, RBY with 21, Lee with 21, Yanni with 27, which is about accurate. David with 29. Well, David didn't win. Deacon 17. The numbers are down, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
24. These are not like 15 years ago when kids came in and their record was 34-2.
Right. I mean, if you look at Yanni had the most. It was 28.
Is that right? Yep. Yeah.
So
it's surprising to me. You see some of these guys, the senior stats, like Jordan Wood hits 100 wins, and this guy, his career record is this. It's like, man, they are lower totals than it used to be.
I know. So going to 84, Brooks, who, again, man, we're blessed with so many great wrestlers to be the face of the sport. And Brooks is one of those kids.
Yeah.
He's such an awesome kid.
I'm going to say something that might piss off Michigan fans.
That's okay.
But I wish that there was a money line on the Brooks and Mean final, because it didn't matter how much money was. It don't matter what the line was. I was going Brooks. Brooks. I told, Jason Katz, a big Michigan guy, works for Major League Baseball. At least he used to. I saw him at the airport in Detroit on my way home, and I said this to him, and he agreed. I said, the worst thing. I said Miles Amin would have been better off losing in the Big Ten finals, because Miles beating Brooks did nothing but light a fire under Brooks's ass. There was no way he was losing that match. No way.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting, because if you look at this weight now, Amin is done. Hidley's done.
Nope, Hidley's back.
He has one more year still?
Trent does, yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking Hayden.
Hayden's done. Yeah.
Next year, is Brooks one of the heaviest favorites to repeat?
Oh yeah. I still think Trent can give him a go.
I think it'll always be a close match with Trent. He's such a competitor.
It was overtime, or it was a stall call last year. It was overtime this year, and frankly, I don't think that Trent was right. I didn't intrude. I didn't ask him. We were in the tunnels after the tournament, and I gave Hayden a big hug and said I loved him, and I said I was really proud of Trent, but I wasn't going to ask him. But eyeball test to me, Trent wasn't 100%.
I love watching Trent. I don't know why I was thinking he was done too, but I'm glad to come back. He's a fun guy to watch. Anything else at this weight that kind of caught your eye?
Well, I thought, once again, Bernie Truax had a good tournament. I mean, beating Keckeisen in the front side, just amazing. Keckeisen comes back and gets him for third, but at least it lets you know, like Truax last year, we knew he was good, but he sort of kind of came out of nowhere. He beat Labriola on the front side. That's actually interesting. Last year, Truax beat Labs on the front side. Labs beat him on the backside. This year, he beats Keckeisen. Keckeisen beats him on the backside. But I think it lets you know that Truax is the truth. He's in the mix with those guys. Certainly not a one-year wonder. I was really happy for Caleb Romero to AA. That guy's been knocking on the door for so long. He's been nothing but an ultimate competitor, and I was really happy to see him punch his way through.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's about it there.
All right, 97. 97, one of the most interesting things to me was, as soon as Ferrari announced he was out for the year, I kind of thought this is Dean's weight to lose, and that's how it played out. What do you make of the refs? There's a lot of people who are not happy with his quarter and semi match, and it's not Max's fault, but he got booed loudly.
Before we get to the refs, let me rebut your first point, where you said when Ferrari's out, it's Dean's weight to lose. I think that is not accurate.
Really?
I think that Max was one of 5 guys who could have won this weight. And I think it's even more a testament to how Penn State performs and how Cale gets them ready to perform.
How did you rank the top 5 in Crystal Ball?
Well, I think I did have Max, but that was not like, that was a Hail Mary. Yeah, I had Max, then Buchanan, then Schultz, Brucky, who DNP'd, then Warner at 6. but I think that Buchanan.
That's exactly how it played out, kind of.
I think Buchanan can beat Dean. I think Schultz can beat Dean, although I don't like that matchup quite as much. I think.
Oh no, I'm talking seeds, not how it played out, but yeah.
Oh, seeds, yeah. So I just think, you know, you have your Aaron Brookses who you're going to pick and you're going to pick strongly, and Nick Lee you're going to pick and you're going to pick strongly, right? You have pretty much confidence. Max Dean is not that type of finals lock in my opinion.
You're right.
And so when Max Dean wins in what I consider a giant toss-up weight, that's kudos to the that's another indication. Well, guess who won? RBY won. And guess who won? Nick Lee won. And guess who won? Aaron Brooks and Carter Starocki. And guess what? That's one thing. But then Dean wins a total toss-up weight. That's the Penn State magic. That's just Penn State magic. They win the ones they should, and then they're going to win a couple that maybe they shouldn't.
I did think Jacob Warner wrestled a hell of a tournament.
Hell of a tournament.
I mean, if you look at who he beat the 2 and 3. He beat, Schultz in a close match 2-0. Then he beats Buchanan 6-4. He wrestled an awesome tournament.
And Schultz, I had a feeling about that one too. I didn't pick it, but I had a feeling like Schultz beat him once, Schultz beat him twice, Schultz beat him 3 times. I had a feeling like this is going to be one of those things that Schultz won all the time, and Warner got the one that mattered the most. And that, sure enough, that's how it played out.
Do you think that, and don't have to go off on a tangent here because it definitely can, but do you think that's going to help or hurt when you start having kids like when I picked Colton to make the finals and lose to Gable in the finals. And then during the previous show I did with Izzy, I kind of walked that back because I'm like, Colton hasn't wrestled the top Big Ten guys. He didn't get them at the collegiate duels. He didn't wrestle. And are you going to start seeing that more where somebody says, why would I wrestle this guy 4 times if I beat him 3 and he beats me 4th? You saw it with Wick and Shane. Kudos, by the way, to both Roman and Austin, because they've both, I think, wrestled every single time.
Right. Yep.
And you got to give them credit there. But you got to wonder if some coaches, because there are some coaches out there who sit their guys because of this exact thing. They don't want their guys to wrestle somebody too many times. Do you think we start seeing that more?
I mean, I think we already are. I think if you're asking, does Schultz making the finals validate that process or that decision making? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And that being said, I don't know that it can get any worse. We see ducking and dodging all year long. And we hate it.
And I don't know, by the way, I don't know how many brothers there are. Somebody listening, if they want to do the stat, but Gabe and Max Dean as brothers who have both won championships, I love.
Yeah.
I love that.
Did you see that picture?
With Gabe hugging Max in the stands?
No, there's one. Somebody had sent me it. I forget who sent me it, but then it was late at night, like 1:00 in the morning or something. And Gabe tweeted something about seeing his brother win was the greatest thing ever. And so I sent it to him, but it's in a tweet.
Yeah. I got it now. I just pulled it up where Max is blurred out a little bit.
Max is blurred out, and in the stands is Gabe just like on cloud 9 and really cool, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, what did Dave do? Dave was definitely an All-American. Dave
That's
Dean.
a good question. I can't remember.
I don't know if he made a final or won it or what, but he was up there.
Yeah. That's a hell of a wrestling family.
Yeah.
And a great group of guys. Like that family is just they're great guys. I want to have Max in the podcast soon. I want to talk to him about.
Yeah, they're awesome people. I had the opportunity. Dave Dean was a part of Flow Nationals for years, and I worked with him, in boardrooms and brainstorming sessions, and awesome human being.
You know, I think you talked about this on your video you did about why Rob left Cornell. And
Mhm.
I think to kind of bring this full circle to Max, Rob losing Max and how much that pissed off Cole speaks to what a guy Max Dean is. That you
Yeah.
lose Max and that like losing him is whether it's a straw that breaks the camel's back, whatever you want to call it. He did not
Yeah.
like losing Max.
No, he didn't. He didn't. That was a big. I mean, you remember, Dave was involved in the Finger Lakes Wrestling Club. Gabe was
Yep.
on staff. Uh, the sort of political kind of stuff that was going on around the COVID situation, and whatever else may have been going on. To lose Max, I mean, you're hitting on the right spots there. I don't think that. I think that was something that definitely discouraged Rob.
Yeah. So that was 97. And then we have heavyweight. And you know, my two big takeaways from heavyweight is that and I know you think Gable's coming back. You might be the only one on the planet to watch a wrestler leave their mat in the shoes and say, nope, he's coming back.
I'm saying lying. I don't think Gable will wrestle again. I firmly believe that.
I think this year was I love the sport. I want to give back to it. I'm doing one more year. I don't think he does that again. I don't. Especially not, you know, we talk about a Soriano and Roman giving up moving to their future because of the sport. And I think the WWE NIL deal that Gable did gave Gable enough security to say, let me go do one more year. I want to be there for the sport. I want to put on a show. I think that deal is there, but I don't think, knowing that that was his last year, I'm sure the WWE deal was a 1-year deal. And when I was talking to Yanni about the NIL deals, when you get a deal, you cannot do two things. You cannot put in performance bonuses, and you have to renegotiate a new contract when the NIL deal is up. So you can't say, Gable, here's a 10-year deal. The first year, you're going to get this. And when you graduate, you're going to get this. You can't say that. So the WWE had to have given him a 1-year NIL deal. And the WWE are creative geniuses. Right. And they know how to tell a story and build brands. They know they have momentum from Gable that at least from the Olympics in August that they can carry over to April. I would not be surprised if we saw Gable at WrestleMania in a couple weeks. He has the momentum at some capacity. I guarantee he will be there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think the WWE
that's a good call. I bet you he is involved.
And I do not think the WWE will let him go one more year because a lot of I think the WWE gives him a deal no matter what. But that Olympic performance, that kind of sealed the deal. And that created so much momentum that he can have that dominating one final year of college.
Right. And then
while the WWE, correct.
When the WWE sees it as anything longer than that, then the spark starts to fizzle.
And in the WWE season, it pretty much goes from WrestleMania to WrestleMania. The night after WrestleMania, you see a lot of stuff. You see retirements, you see NXT call-ups. That's kind of the start of the season. So it could not be more perfect timing to have Gable show up at WrestleMania in some capacity and then be at Raw the next night.
I agree. I agree. Everything you're saying makes sense. I will say that I have had conversations with people that the door is open, though, number one. And number two, I believe that the WWE is in a really unique situation where Gable can perform in a sport outside of WWE and be an ultimate star. an ultimate star in a legitimate sport while competing in WWE, and that has never happened. You have had ex-athletes go there. You have ex-power lifters. You have had ex-wrestlers. You have had ex-football players. What you have not had is somebody rushing for 1,000 yards and then going in WWE and then going and rushing for 1,000 yards again and scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's what they could have with Gable if they allow him to just wrestle in February and March next year. If they allow him to just wrestle at the Olympic trials, they could have their cake and eat it too.
Well, and there's been
and the legitimacy that comes with that. Like, number one, it draws in non-endemic fans to WWE. There's people like me, frankly, that are like, well, yeah, they're tremendous athletes, but it's scripted and it's made up and this and that, and they're not real athletes anymore. And Gable goes and wins 24 Olympics, and a month later is in the heavyweight championship match of the world in WWE. That's real athlete shit.
I do think they're all real athletes. I think the WWE is insane. I'd like to have Jacob Casper on here right now.
I shouldn't say I shouldn't say real athletes. I should say active athlete, like
competitive sport athletes in other sports.
Right, yes.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I heard from a high level, accomplished senior level athlete this weekend that Gable's plan is no 2024, but he would consider 2028 because it's in the US.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he'll only be like 27, I think, at that point. 26, 27.
That is ridiculous, by the way.
He could skip an entire cycle and then come back in 2028.
He could hit his third Olympics at 28. That is stupid. How young. Can I just remind everybody that I called him the greatest high school wrestling prospect of all time?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I will say, you know what? To go back to 285, and he's my guy, so this is biased as well. But even the non-biased, Kirk impressed me so much because he finally just let himself wrestle, and he did so damn good. And I cannot wait for this weight next year.
That's what I was going to say. I didn't want to wrap up this weight without asking you, Sans Gable, who's your champ next year?
Kirk. It's the only logical answer. And I'm sure people will tweet me that, but he lately owns Mason Paris. And I don't think there's anybody here I know Cassiopei's beat him a couple times. And I know for some reason Cassiopei's in his head, or seems to be. But when I look at this field, I pick Kirk. I'm biased. I'm a Penn State guy. So people can say whoever they want. Colton's obviously right there. Colton's a dog. Mason's very good.
I think I'm picking Kirk too. I think I'm picking Kirk too. I mean, he's lost to Cassiopei twice, yes, and I think he made adjustments. But I think actually both matches were sort of attributable. And I'm not taking anything away from Cass. I love Tony Cassiopei, but I think that in the first match Kirk made tactical errors. In the second match, it was just a boneheaded decision. I mean, it didn't work out. Now what him and Schultz looks like, I don't know, but going forward, I will take Kirk over Mason. I'll take Kirk over Cass. And I think with one more year, he might be able to beat Schultz. Kirk Schultz in some form or fashion to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the finals next year. And Penn State bias aside, if it's Kirk and Schultz in the finals, and at this point, you're not betting on Penn State magic. I say it all the time. If there's a Penn State kid in the finals, I mean, the last 2 years, everybody said, they said this year, 5 Penn State champs again. There's that Penn State homer. How do you pick against them?
are you not looking at track record? You're not looking at track record.
And especially
the only
this
time,
year,
you know what, too? The only times, I will say, hold on, let me see. The only times that Penn State lost finals, they don't lose toss-up finals. They only lose when, well, I guess, okay, Hall lost to Valencia. That was sort of a toss-up match-ish. Joseph lost when he was favored, but nobody really knew what Mackay was. And then Hall, Valencia again. But I don't know. Like Morgan McIntosh to Jaden, that's not
Morgan. How many years are you going back now?
That's 2016.
You know what I mean? That's 6 years ago already.
2, 3. They've only lost 3 finals since then, since 2016.
And like this year, especially when somebody said, well, your bias worked out last year, but look at, you have 4 returning champs and the number 1 seed. So it's almost an anti-Penn State bias if you don't pick those. Now, Brady Berkey ran to the finals.
Don't you think the rest of the world gets pissed off? Like how pissed off is the rest of the world and the coaches when they say to Kale, man, how do you do it? Like, how do your guys, they win every time. And like, you have such a great track record. And like, what do you do? What do you tell them before they go out? And he's like, we just tell them to have fun. That's like low key trolling. But that's high key, upper level genius trolling.
Cal is one of the most underrated press conference performers of all time, because if you have a conversation with Cal for 30 minutes before he goes to the press conference, they're night and day conversations. They're night and day. He's very methodical with what he says and what he doesn't say.
He's funny.
But I mean, I think I'm the luckiest sports fan of all time, because I really did not follow college wrestling until Cal became a client of mine in 2008. The next year, he goes to Penn State. He brings me in. I'm there all the time. I felt like an alumni, become a Penn State fan. And then they create a dynasty.
and then into it.
And then the more I got into it, 2016 was the year I started going to NCAAs every year. Yeah. Since then, Penn State had 5 finalists. The timing was perfect. But
yeah, I'm lucky. I'm fortunate too. I get to talk to all the coaches, the Tom Brands of the world, and the John Smiths, and even Kale. Kale doesn't talk to a whole lot of human beings, but he talks to me, and I try not to abuse that, and I try not to. Like, I know if I call Kale, he'll answer the phone, but I also never call Kale, like, really, because I'm not gonna abuse that.
I wait until he calls me, because he'll call me randomly and ask me questions. We've worked at it for 12 years, so he trusts my opinion on stuff. So he'll call me, and then when he calls me, that's when I use that as the I won't hang up. I have to hop on a real life call here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, here's a funny story. Like when somebody important calls me or texts me, and I had a few beers, I don't answer, right? And I don't even text back. And like a person of Kale's stature, I certainly, if it's like, the more important they are, the less I will answer, because I am not having a conversation when I had a couple beers. Well, a couple months ago, I was having a couple beers and Kale texted me, and the beer got the best of me. And I said, Kale, how come I'm always telling you stuff and you're never telling me stuff about the program? And he's like, well, what do you want to know? I said, never mind. I'll call you tomorrow.
Before we have to wrap this up, speaking of coaches, what did you make of Brand's comment that he was jealous of Penn State having 5 champions?
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I have yet to dive into all the post stuff. I haven't heard a whole heck of a lot of interviews. I don't know. Like, when I say that Keegan wasn't right and Trent wasn't right, I actually, some of you guys at home might be saying, well, no crap, Willie, they said it in post-match stuff. I didn't get to digest all that. So if I apologize if that's like already known thing. And I hadn't heard. That's the first time I've heard that Tom said that. So I have to, because right after the tournament, I'm just gonna find this crazy, but I started doing stuff for NHLCA. I had to. I made a promise that I would do it, and I did it. So, as soon as I get off the thing with you, I'm gonna dive into post NCAA content for the first time.
Well, we might have to do a follow-up show then.
Yeah, let's do it anytime. I would like to do some kind of show with you. Just a second recap on stories, and maybe a third on 2023.
Yeah, and I also think it's going to get really interesting because over the next couple of weeks, I know people are already calling me, so I know they're calling you first and asking about transfers. And what are you hearing? It's like NCAA isn't even over, and coaches are on the hunt.
I got them Saturday night. Who's got in the portal? What jobs are opening up?
Yep.
And I really don't know. I do. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of kids in the portal. What jobs? I'm not sure. Typically by this point, we have a better indication. So I really don't know. Heffernan last year kind of came out of nowhere. But yeah, there's certainly a ton to talk about.
All right. Well, that's perfect timing. I hope y'all enjoyed this. We'll be back soon with another one. Willie, go enjoy some content.
Thanks, JB.
All right, everybody. See ya.